I shouldn't even be telling you this, but I can't keep it inside anymore. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm sitting here in a cheap motel room on the edge of nowhere, staring at a locked door I don't trust, and praying the things that followed me don't find the scent. I escaped, that much is true, but escape doesn't mean free. You ever feel the weight of invisible chains? The kind that tug even when you're miles away from the place that forged them? That's what I've got wrapped around me now. And it all started in a building that doesn't officially exist, buried under a desert you've driven past without knowing. I was a contractor, not military. That's what they told me anyway. Just a technician brought in for special maintenance. Easy work, decent pay, no questions asked. I should have asked questions. The place didn't look like much when they flew me in. From the outside, it was just a square compound of concrete walls baking under the sun. A couple of hangars, a few camo tents, a chain link fence stretching into nothing. But when they walked me past the checkpoints, down into the elevator shaft that kept sinking and sinking, that's when I realized whatever I'd signed up for wasn't just routine. The elevator didn't have floor buttons, just a keycard slot and a keypad. I counted the seconds as we descended. 30, 60, 90. My ears popped like we were diving underwater. When the doors finally opened, the air was different, sterile, too clean, with a faint metallic taste like pennies on my tongue. That smell has never left me. They gave me clearance for level 3. That's what they called it. Not floor 3, not sublevel. Just level 3. White corridors, bright lights that buzzed with a constant hum. No windows, no clocks. Every hallway looked the same, like they'd been copied and pasted. And everywhere I turned, there were cameras. I could feel them pivot to follow me, the soft mechanical whir crawling under my skin. The work itself? Routine at first. Wiring checks, security panel resets, maintenance on the environmental controls. Things I'd done 100 times before. Only difference was the equipment. It was advanced. Beyond anything I'd seen in civilian contracts. Panels with no serial numbers. Conduits that ran deeper than the blueprints showed. Terminals encrypted with layers I wasn't supposed to touch. But it wasn't the tech that bothered me most. It was the people. The soldiers didn't smile, didn't talk. They stood in corners with rifles that looked heavier than standard issue, and their eyes were always glassy, unfocused, like they were listening to something I couldn't hear. The scientists weren't better. White coats, clipped voices, faces pale from never seeing the sun. They avoided me, avoided each other, always moving quick like they were late for something. I remember one guy, older, gray hair, glasses slipping down his nose. I tried to joke with him while I was recalibrating a door panel. "So, Doc, what kind of experiments they keeping behind these doors, huh?" Just trying to cut the tension. He froze mid-step. His eyes flicked to the nearest camera. Then he leaned close and whispered, voice shaking, "Don't ask, don't look." That was the first crack in the surface, but it wasn't the last. The further down the corridors I went, the more contradictions piled up. Why were some sections sealed with 3 layers of security when others were wide open? Why did I hear the occasional thud, deep, heavy, like something throwing itself against metal from behind certain reinforced doors? And why, when I walked past those doors, did the soldiers' knuckles whiten on their rifles? At night, I think it was night, it's hard to tell underground, they put me in a dorm room with no windows and a camera in the corner. The bed was stiff, the sheets tucked too tight. I lay there, staring at the red glow of the surveillance light, listening to the hum of ventilation ducts. Sometimes, underneath that hum, I swore I heard something else. Scratching. Not like rats. Not mechanical. More deliberate. Slow. Long pauses. Then another drag of claw on metal. Always just faint enough that I wondered if it was in my head. Would you have slept if you were me? The next morning, they handed me a new assignment. Environmental Recalibration, Section 7. I didn't know where Section 7 was. The map they'd given me didn't even list it. But the soldier who escorted me knew the way. He didn't speak, just marched me down corridor after corridor until the lights overhead flickered. That's the first time I saw the glass. A wall, stretching floor to ceiling, thick enough to stop a bomb blast. Behind it, shadows moved. I couldn't make out shapes, not clearly, just bulk, just motion, something too large to belong underground. And as I pressed closer, squinting into that dim chamber beyond, I swear one of the shadows pressed back. A shape, massive, with too many angles. It leaned close to the glass, and the fluorescent light hit something wet and glistening where a face should have been. Then, the soldier shoved me forward, hard. "Keep moving," he muttered. His voice was hoarse, like it hurt him to speak. I stumbled, my tool bag clattering against the floor. By the time I looked back, the shadow was gone, but the glass was smeared, like something had dragged itself across the other side. I kept walking, because what else could I do? That night, the scratching in the vents was louder, and it wasn't just scratching anymore, it was breathing. I tried to tell myself it was just the ventilation system. Old fans, loose ducts, the usual. But I'd worked on systems like this before, and I knew the sound of air being pushed through metal shafts. What I heard in that room wasn't air. It had rhythm. Inhale, exhale, slow, wet, like lungs filling with mud. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, watching the corner camera's red dot glow. I thought about covering it, but I'd seen what happened when doors locked behind you in this place. I didn't want to draw attention. Still, every time that breathing dragged closer, I had to fight the urge to bolt out into the hallway. Would you have stayed or risked the hallway? By morning, my head pounded like I'd swallowed a hive of bees. They sent me out again, escorted by another mute soldier whose boots hit the floor in perfect rhythm with mine, like we were shackled together. Section 7 again. Always Section 7. This time, I had to run diagnostics on the environmental controls, but the readouts made no sense. Pressure levels oscillating, humidity spikes like thunderstorms underground, temperature shifts as if the system couldn't decide if it was preserving something frozen or cooking it alive. When I asked the escort about it, his jaw clenched. He said nothing. But when I looked up, I caught him glancing, just once, toward that glass wall again. The shadows were there, only this time closer. I forced myself not to look too long, but peripheral vision can betray you. The movement behind the glass didn't follow the natural gait of anything alive. Too jerky, then too fluid, like multiple things moving as one. Every instinct in me screamed to back away, but the soldier shifted, blocking me from stepping too far. almost like he wanted me in sight of that wall. And then I heard it. Not scratching, not breathing, whispers, not in English, not even in a language I recognized. But the cadence was unmistakable. 2, maybe 3 voices murmuring together, weaving over each other, low enough that my eardrums vibrated without catching the words. I looked at the soldier, hoping, desperate, that he'd acknowledge it, that I wasn't going insane. He wouldn't meet my eyes, but his knuckles were white on his rifle again, just like before. That's when the intercom crackled. Section 7, recalibration complete. Technician, report to level 4. Level 4? They'd only cleared me for level 3. I froze, holding my toolkit like it might shield me. The soldier turned to me, visor hiding his eyes. Move. So I moved. The elevator ride was different this time. Longer. I felt it in my gut, the descent. My ears didn't just pop, they screamed, like the pressure down here wasn't built for people. When the doors slid open, the air hit me first. Thicker, warmer. It stank of bleach, but underneath, a rot. Sweet and sharp, like fruit left to liquefy in a locked car. Level 4 wasn't the same sterile white. It was darker. The walls lined with a material I didn't recognize. Black, textured, swallowing the light. The corridors bent more. No straight lines anymore. The cameras were still there, but smaller, tucked into corners, like insects burrowed into flesh. They led me past locked doors. Some hissed as if pressurized, some rattled faintly. From one, I heard something like a child crying. High-pitched, weak, then cut off like someone hit mute. The soldier kept walking. I forced myself not to stop, not to press my ear against the doors. But every sound etched itself into me. A scrape like bone dragged against stone. A hiss too sharp, too long to belong to a human throat. Once, I thought I smelled burning hair. Finally, they stopped me at a chamber larger than the rest. Inside, machines I'd never seen before. Huge tanks of opaque fluid, each lit from below with a faint orange glow. Tubes thick as my arms slithered into the tanks, pumping, pulsing, carrying something. My job was simple, they told me. Check the feeds, adjust the oxygen balance, replace a corroded circuit. Routine. But as I bent over the console, my eyes kept drifting. The tanks weren't empty. Shapes floated in the orange haze. Some small, some massive. Limbs bent wrong, eyes clouded like boiled eggs. Skin too thin and stretched. One pressed against the glass as I looked, its lips parting. Bubbles drifted up, breaking the surface with tiny pops. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook on the console. And then, behind me, the soldier finally spoke again. They dream louder when you watch them. I spun, my chest hollow. What? But he wouldn't repeat it. The console beeped. A warning light flared. Oxygen imbalance. I focused on the machine, just to anchor myself. But my reflection in the glass tank wavered. And behind it, not the floating shapes, not the soldier, something else. A face. Not mine. Not human. Close. Too close. I stumbled back, hitting the console hard enough to send sparks snapping. Alarms wailed, tanks hissing. The soldier slammed his hand on a panel, doors locking around us. And through the alarms, I swear I heard the whispers again. Not muffled this time. Clear, speaking my name. They shouldn't have known my name. Nobody down there called me by it. Not the soldiers, not the scientists, not even on the paperwork. To them, I was just a clearance badge and a payroll ID. But when those whispers rolled through the chamber, curling between the alarms, they were sharp and deliberate. My name, syllable by syllable, stretched too long, too wet. The soldier acted like he didn't hear. He shoved me toward the exit panel, his hand crushing my shoulder with more strength than any man should have had. "Work," he said, voice rasping like a chain being dragged across concrete. Just that one word, but it wasn't the same tone he'd used before. It was heavier. I patched the circuit with trembling hands, trying not to look at the tanks. The alarms died down, the hissing subsided, but my reflection in the glass still wasn't right. It lagged, a fraction of a second slower than my own movements. And when I raised my head, my reflection's mouth stayed open, whispering. I didn't stay to watch what it said. The soldier unlocked the doors and marched me out, the echo of my name still scraping in my ears. Back in my dorm, I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, that I was hearing echoes, seeing tricks of the light. But when I splashed water on my face, something strange happened. The drain gurgled, not clogged, breathing. I dropped the cup. It shattered in the sink. I stumbled back, heart hammering, as the drain's gurgle rose to a wet laugh before it went silent. The camera's red light blinked. Once, twice, a pause, then again, like it was winking at me. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat with my back to the wall, knees pulled up, waiting for something to crawl out of the vent. The scratching came again around what must have been 3 a.m, slow and teasing, like nails tracing letters I couldn't see. You think I'm exaggerating? Listen. Have you ever heard your own voice in a place it couldn't be? Because I did. Faint, muffled, carried through the vents. Not a recording. No, it wasn't words I remembered saying. It was me, but wrong. Like someone had peeled my voice out of me and was using it to practice. The next morning, I begged for reassignment. I pulled one of the white coats aside, cornered him by the commissary, where they served us bland, tasteless trays of food. Look, I can't keep going into Section 7. I'll work anywhere else. He cut me off with a look so cold it stripped me raw. Then, under his breath, he whispered, "You think you're the first?" His hands shook as he carried his tray away, head down. I didn't know what he meant, not then. That evening, they sent me deeper. Level 5. The elevator ride felt endless. The soldier at my side this time was different. Taller, pale under, his visor, his breath shallow. He never looked at me once. When the doors opened, the smell was unbearable. Rot, chemical burn, coppery tang. It coated my tongue, stuck in my hair. Level 5 wasn't like the others. The walls weren't built. They were carved, rock, damp and sweating, lit by sparse bulbs that flickered like dying fireflies. The floor was slick under my boots, and I couldn't tell if it was condensation or something thicker. I asked the soldier where we were. He didn't answer. They brought me to a chamber where the air shimmered with heat, though no heat source was visible. The machines here weren't just tanks. They were cages. Tall enough to hold a man, wide enough to hold more. Shapes pressed against the bars. Skin pale as candle wax. Limbs too long. Faces blurred as if refusing to form fully. One of them hissed when it saw me. Not animal, not human. Something in between. The soldier gestured to the control panel. "Reset!" His voice cracked on the word. I moved to the console, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped my tools. And that's when I realized each cage was numbered. 7, 8, 9, and then one with the paint scratched away so violently the metal dented. No number left, just deep gouges. From that cage came a sound that hollowed me out. Not scratching, not whispers. Laughter. Low, rolling, like something old had learned to imitate joy and got it wrong. It scraped through the chamber, bending in pitch, almost singing. The soldier stiffened, fingers tightening on his rifle. He glanced at the cage, then at me, and whispered so quietly I almost missed it. "Don't look at it." But you know what happens when someone tells you not to look. I looked, and for a moment, just a blink, I swear I saw myself staring back through the bars, only my eyes were black. I tore my gaze away, but the damage was done. That image, me or something wearing me, was burned into my skull like an afterimage from staring at the sun too long. My reflection in the glass tanks had been unsettling enough, but this was different. This thing was alive. The soldier shoved me toward the console again, harder this time, as if he knew what I'd seen. His voice rasped, "Work, don't stop." My hands fumbled through the reset sequence, but my eyes kept flicking to that gouged cage. The laughter had stopped. Silence pressed against me like water. And in that silence, I felt a pressure inside my skull, behind my eyes. A presence pushing against the fragile membrane of thought. You ever felt someone else think inside your head? That's what it was. Not words, not exactly. Just an intrusion, a suggestion. I didn't belong here, it told me, but I wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. The console chimed, oxygen balances restored, and the soldier yanked me back toward the elevator. His pace was frantic now, boots slapping the wet stone floor, visor fogging. He didn't even wait for the doors to close before jabbing the keycard. The elevator lurched upward. I expected relief. I didn't get it. As we rose, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the elevator shuddered and stopped between levels. The hum of machinery went silent. And in that silence, the soldier began to breathe too fast, shallow, desperate. His gloved hands trembled on the rifle. I asked, "What's happening?" He didn't answer. He leaned his head back against the steel wall and whispered something. Not to me, not really. A prayer, repeated over and over, the same phrase under his breath. The lights went out. Total darkness. In that black, the air changed, thickened. The same rot sweetness I'd smelled on level 5 filled the elevator, only stronger, like it had been waiting for us. I couldn't see my own hand when I raised it, but I could hear a sound that didn't belong in a machine. Wet, dragging, something shifting weight from one side to another. A body pressed against steel. The soldier snapped. He fired 3 rounds into the dark, muzzle flashes lighting his visor for split seconds, each time revealing nothing. No walls, no floor, no ceiling, just blackness, stretching. And in the gaps between gunshots, something laughed. Not from the cage this time, from inside the elevator. The soldier screamed, not a word, just raw panic, and dropped to his knees. His rifle clattered to the floor, useless. I felt it then, a breath, hot and rancid, against my ear, close enough to stir my hair. If you were me, I whispered to myself, you'd run. But where? There was nowhere to run. Then, without warning, the lights flickered back on. The elevator lurched, resumed its climb. In less than 10 seconds, the doors slid open to level 3. Sterile white light, humming fluorescence, the same uniform corridors. The soldier was still on his knees, visor cracked, chest heaving. He didn't move when I stepped out, didn't follow. I never saw him again. That night back in the dorm, I tried not to break. I held it together by telling myself I'd get out soon, that contracts end, that they couldn't keep me forever. I lay awake listening to the vents, but there was no scratching, no breathing, no voices, just silence. Almost worse. The next day, I wasn't escorted by a soldier. 2 scientists came instead, faces pale, lips pinched. They handed me a clearance badge with a black stripe down the center. Temporary access, level 6. I told them no. My voice cracked. I told them I wouldn't go any deeper. That they could fire me, blacklist me, I didn't care. One of them leaned close, his breath sour with coffee and fear. He whispered, "It's too late to stop now. You've already been noticed." Noticed. That word cut colder than anything else. I followed them. What else could I do? The level 6 elevator ride was silent, except for the faint hum of machinery miles overhead. When the doors opened, heat hit me like a wall. The air shimmered, thick with humidity, dripping down the walls in greasy rivulets. The corridor bent, twisted, not carved, but grown. That's the only way I can describe it. The walls had veins, pulsing faintly, carrying some kind of liquid that reeked of copper and mold. The floor wasn't stone or steel, it felt softer. I asked what the hell this place was. Neither scientist answered. They brought me into a chamber that pulsed with a low, steady rhythm. At first, I thought it was machinery. Then I realized, no, it was a heartbeat. The walls themselves were alive. And in the center of that chamber, suspended from the ceiling by hooks and cables, was something I'll never erase from my mind. It wasn't in a tank. It wasn't caged. It was awake. It hung there like a marionette, abandoned mid-performance. A silhouette against the pulsing walls. But silhouettes don't breathe. This thing did. Its chest swelled and collapsed in slow, deliberate movements. Each exhale, a wet hiss that stank of rust and rot. Its skin, or what looked like skin, was stretched thin, almost translucent, veins webbing across it like rivers on a map. Limbs too long, jointed wrong, suspended from metal hooks that pierced through without spilling blood. Its head lolled forward, bald, smooth, until it twitched, snapping upright, faster than my eyes could follow. And then it looked at me. I don't know how it looked. Its face had no eyes, just hollows. Empty sockets, weeping a black fluid that dripped and sizzled when it hit the floor. But I felt its gaze, direct, heavy, a weight settling in my bones. The scientists didn't flinch. One adjusted his glasses, jotting something on a clipboard. The other gestured at the console beside me. "Stabilize the feed." My throat closed. "What the hell is it?" Neither answered. The thing twitched again, head jerking, jaw hanging slack. Its mouth stretched too wide, too long, splitting the skin at the corners. No teeth, just darkness. A cavern that seemed to breathe on its own. And then, Without moving its lips, I heard my name, clear, inside my skull. I staggered back, my toolkit slipping from my hands. Tools clattered against the soft floor and didn't bounce. They sank slightly, as if the surface wanted to swallow them. "Now!" one of the scientists barked, tone sharp, commanding. So I forced myself forward. Fingers trembling, I patched into the console. The feed was unstable, numbers spiking, dipping, alarms warning of irregular neural activity. Neural. That word on the screen made my stomach knot. The longer I stared, the louder the voice in my head became. Not just my name anymore. Phrases, fragments. "We see. We remember. You were always meant to come." I couldn't breathe. My lungs locked. My pulse thundered in my ears. The scientist beside me noticed. His hand shot out, gripping my arm so hard I yelped. He leaned close, his whisper frantic. "Don't answer it. Whatever you do, don't answer." Answer what? I didn't have time to ask. The creature jerked, limbs spasming against the hooks, the cables groaning. Its mouth opened wider, the hollows where eyes should have been leaking thicker, streams of black. And then it smiled, not with lips, with the shape of its whole body, contorting, curling in a grotesque mimicry of joy. And suddenly, I understood. The smile wasn't for the scientists. It was for me. The console screamed warnings. Critical failure. Containment breach imminent. The scientists shouted at each other, scrambling to stabilize the feeds. One shoved me aside, frantically typing commands. The heartbeat in the walls quickened. The chamber throbbed. I felt it through my boots, through my ribs, inside my skull. The hooks holding the creature began to tear. Metal bent. Screws popped loose. I ran. The scientist's shouts followed me into the corridor, shrill and desperate, but I didn't turn back. My boots pounded on that pulsing floor, splashing through the rivulets of black fluid seeping from the walls. Behind me, the alarms howled, but louder than that came a sound I'll never forget. Laughter, rolling out of that chamber, filling the corridors, echoing through the vents, low and triumphant. I reached the elevator, slammed the key card, pounded the button. Nothing. The doors didn't move. Then the walls whispered. Not from the creature, from the walls themselves, the veins bulging, the liquid inside rushing faster. Thousands of voices, layered, chanting, overlapping, none human. And then, one word, stay. The corridor warped, or maybe my vision did. The walls seemed to close in, veins throbbing, the floor softening under my weight, as if trying to pull me down. I clawed at the elevator panel, pried it open, yanked wires. Sparks bit my fingers, but I didn't care. I rewired the bypass manually, breath ragged, vision swimming. The elevator finally groaned and the doors slid open a crack. Just enough. I shoved myself inside. The doors closed. As the elevator rose, I slumped against the wall, gasping. My hand shook, bloodied from the sparks. My heart wouldn't slow. But then the lights flickered again. And in the reflection of the steel door, I saw not my own face, but the eyeless smile. I turned away, choking on bile. The ride felt endless. By the time the doors opened to level 3, I was crawling on hands and knees. The hallway was empty, too empty. No soldiers, no scientists, just sterile white silence. I staggered back to my dorm. The camera's red light was gone. Just black. Watching. Unblinking. When I collapsed on the bed, something wet dripped onto my face from the vent above. I wiped it with shaking fingers. Black. Thick. Burning my skin. The liquid burned into my skin like acid, sizzling against my cheek. I scrambled off the bed, clawing at my face with the hem of my sleeve until the sting dulled, leaving a patch of raw, blistered flesh. The vent above rattled once, then went still. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat on the floor in the corner, watching the vent, waiting for the next drop. None came. Only silence. By morning, if it was morning, the door to my dorm hissed, open without warning. 2 soldiers stepped in. Not the silent statues I was used to. These were different. Pale, twitching. Their eyes were red-rimmed, bloodshot, rolling in their sockets as though tracking something I couldn't see. "Come," one croaked. His voice was raw, shredded, like he'd been screaming for hours. I didn't argue. They didn't take me to the elevator. They led me down a corridor I'd never been in before. Walls tighter. Lights dimmer. The air was damp, reeking of copper and mold. Every few feet I saw stains on the floor. Dark patches that might have been water once, but had dried too thick. We stopped at a door heavier than the rest, reinforced with crossbars. One soldier keyed it open, the lock screeching as it disengaged. Inside, another chamber. Not white, not sterile. The walls here were stone, jagged, dripping, carved into shapes that didn't look natural. Symbols, maybe, or scars, and in the center of the chamber was a chair. They shoved me toward it. I caught myself on the armrests, my knees buckling. Restraints hung from the sides, leather cracked and stiff with age. "What is this?" My voice cracked. Neither soldier answered. One pulled a strap across my wrist. The other strapped my chest. Their hands trembled as they worked, but their grip was unyielding. When they finished, they stepped back, rifles slack at their sides, and stared at the floor as if they couldn't bear to see me. The lights dimmed. A low hum filled the chamber, vibrating up through the chair into my spine. And then I heard it. The heartbeat. The same rhythm from level 6, pounding through the walls, syncing with my pulse until I couldn't tell if it was mine or its. A screen flickered to life in front of me. Grainy. Static. And then an image. The eyeless thing from level 6. Still hooked, still hanging, but moving now. Swaying like it knew I was watching. Its jaw dropped open, too wide. And though no sound came from the screen, the hum in the room changed. Became words. "We know you." I thrashed against the restraints, leather biting into my skin. "Let me out." The soldiers didn't move. The screen flickered again. For a moment, it wasn't the creature staring at me. It was me. My face, my body, strapped in the same chair. Only the eyes were gone. Hollow sockets dripping black. I screamed until my throat tore. The hum deepened, shaking dust from the stone ceiling. The walls bled condensation, dark streaks running like sweat. The image on the screen shifted again. Now, it was the corridor outside my dorm. Empty. Silent. Then, suddenly, someone walked into frame. Me. Walking calmly, toolkit in hand, face blank. But I was strapped to the chair. The soldiers finally moved. They backed toward the door, leaving me alone with the screen. One muttered under his breath, words I barely caught. "It's choosing." Choosing. The screen went black. The hum cut out. The chamber fell into suffocating silence. And without the hum to mask it, I heard breathing. Not mine. Not in the corridor. Not from the soldiers. Right behind me. Slow, wet, patient. The straps dug into my arms as I tried to twist around. My neck strained, tendons screaming, until I caught a glimpse over my shoulder. In the corner of the chamber, half hidden in the shadows, something unfolded itself from the stone. Not a soldier, not a scientist, not even the eyeless thing from the hooks. Something else. It crawled forward on too many limbs, each joint bending backward, claws tapping on stone. Its face, if you can call it that, was a smear of features, shifting, reshaping, like it couldn't decide which mask to wear. And as it slithered closer, I realized it was trying them all. For one moment, it wore my mother's face. Then, the soldier who'd collapsed in the elevator. Then, the gray-haired scientist who told me not to ask questions. And then, it wore mine. It leaned close, so close I could taste the rot on its breath, and whispered with my voice, "You'll never leave." I don't remember blacking out. One moment, that thing was whispering in my own voice, its shifting face pressed inches from mine, and the next, I was on the floor. The straps were undone. The chair was empty. The soldiers were gone. But the chamber wasn't silent. The walls pulsed with that low heartbeat, faster now, urgent. The stones seemed to close in, the symbols on the walls glowing faintly with a sickly green sheen. And somewhere deeper in the rock, something moved, heavy, deliberate. I staggered to my feet, head spinning. My skin burned where the straps had bitten. The door that had been sealed was wide open. I ran for it, boots slipping on the damp stone. The corridor outside wasn't the same one I'd been led down. The walls twisted, angled, as if the whole place had shifted while I was unconscious. The lights overhead flickered, sparking, sometimes plunging me into darkness for long stretches. And in that darkness, I wasn't alone. Footsteps, matching mine, then pausing when I stopped. Breathing, close, but never visible when the lights came back. You ever felt hunted in a place with nowhere to hide? That's what it was. Every step forward dragged me deeper into the maze. I tried to retrace, but the corridors bent wrong, spiraled, doors appearing where there hadn't been any. Some led to dead ends, others to walls that dripped black fluid like open wounds. Once, I opened a door to find not a corridor, but a window, thick glass. Behind it, a chamber of water, glowing faintly blue. Shapes drifted in it, pale, bloated, tethered by cords. Eyes opening, as if they'd been waiting for me. One lifted a hand, pressed it to the glass. Its skin was mine. Its face was mine. Its lips parted, but no sound came, just bubbles drifting up. I slammed the door shut and kept running. Eventually, the air changed again, grew colder, staler. The heartbeat faded. I stumbled into a long, narrow corridor lined with rusted doors. Each had a small window, fogged over. I should have kept moving. I should have run straight through. But curiosity kills. You know that, don't you? I peered through the first window. Inside, a man sat on the floor, knees pulled to his chest, rocking slowly. His hair hung in greasy clumps, his fingernails blackened. He muttered to himself, over and over. I pressed closer. He was muttering my name. The next door, same thing. Another man, same posture, same muttering, same face, my face. Door after door after door, all of them me. Dozens, each locked away, rocking, whispering my name like a prayer. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. My hands shook so violently I could barely keep moving. And then I reached the last door. This one wasn't fogged. I saw clearly inside, and the man strapped to the chair on the other side looked up. His sockets were hollow, dripping black, his grin wide. He mouthed words I couldn't hear, but I didn't need sound to understand. You're next. The lights overhead blew out, plunging the corridor into darkness. Every door rattled, hands pounding from the other side, dozens of voices rising together. My voices. I ran. I don't remember how long. My legs burned. My lungs clawed for air. But I didn't stop until I slammed chest first into a steel wall. A dead end. The pounding of hands on doors followed me. Closer now, echoing through the dark. I pressed my palms flat against the wall, searching for a seam, a panel, anything. And then the wall opened. Not like a door, like a mouth. Metal folding back, wet and organic, teeth glistening where hinges should be. Hands, too many hands, shot out, clawing for me. Some mine, some not. I screamed, threw myself backward, stumbled onto the floor. The mouth wall slammed shut, teeth clanging like steel bars. Silence. My breath came in ragged bursts, tears stinging my blistered cheek. My mind was unraveling, strand by strand. I didn't know which way was up anymore. That's when I heard it, the voice. Not in the vents, not in my head, not whispered by reflections or doppelgangers. Loud, clear, all around me. We're almost free. The corridor shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. The heartbeat returned. Faster now, thunderous. Something was waking. And I realized this wasn't containment anymore. It was birth. The ground bucked under me like something alive, something struggling to claw its way to the surface. Dust poured from the ceiling, filling my lungs. The walls rippled, steel plates bending outward as if the stone beneath was swelling, and beneath it all, laughter. Not human laughter. It was too deep, too wide, stretching in directions a voice shouldn't. It filled the corridor, pressed against my skull, reverberated inside my teeth. I staggered forward, desperate for escape. My palms dragged along the walls, slick with condensation. Then with something warmer, thicker. I pulled my hand back, red. The corridor was bleeding. I don't know how I made it to the stairwell. I think the building wanted me out as much as I wanted to leave. The steps twisted beneath my boots, some metal, some stone, some flesh. I climbed, clawing upward while the walls around me heaved. And then, light. Blinding. Cold. I burst through a hatch and suddenly I was outside. Night air slapped my face, sharp with pine and rain. I collapsed onto wet grass, gasping, coughing, clutching at the earth as if it could anchor me. The hatch behind me sealed shut, seamless with the ground. Just a patch of dirt, nothing more. If I hadn't come through it, I'd swear it was never there. For a moment, I thought I was free. But the forest wasn't silent. Branches snapped, leaves rustled, and the smell hit me. Rot and copper, thick enough to choke on. My eyes adjusted, and I saw them. Not soldiers, not men. Shadows between the trees. Too tall, too thin, arms dragging along the ground. Their eyes glowed faintly, like embers buried deep in ash. And they weren't moving randomly. They were circling me. I bolted, crashing through undergrowth, not caring about direction, just moving. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I couldn't stop. I could hear them behind me, pacing, matching, never too close, never letting me forget they were there. Then, a break in the trees, a road, cracked asphalt, glistening with rain. I stumbled onto it, falling to my knees. Headlights, a truck rumbling down the road, horn blaring as the driver slammed the brakes. Gravel sprayed, tires screeched, and then a man's voice shouted, "You okay?" He jumped down, grabbed my arm, hauled me up. His eyes went wide at the sight of me. Blood, burns, dirt, tears, but he didn't ask questions. Just shoved me into the cab and floored it. The truck roared forward, engine screaming. Trees blurred past, shadows vanishing in the rear view. For the first time in what felt like years, I let myself believe maybe I was safe. But you and I both know better, don't we? Because as the truck rattled down the road, I looked at the driver. His knuckles clenched white on the wheel, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed dead ahead. And under the hum of the engine, I heard it. That same heartbeat, slow, heavy, coming from him. He turned, just enough for me to see his face. And I realized, with a sickness I can't put into words, it was my face. Not a copy, not a reflection, not one of the whispering, muttering shadows locked in those cells. It was me, but older, hollow, waiting. He smiled, lips peeling back too far. "Told you, we're almost free." The truck didn't slow. The road didn't end. And I don't remember what happened next. All I know is this: I escaped that lab. I breathed the air again. I felt rain on my face. But I wasn't the one who walked away. And if you've made it this far into my story, if you've listened to every word, you've already heard the heartbeat, haven't you? Don't ignore it. That's how they find their way out.